Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. Today's the 19th of January, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So just a reminder here that the Ethereum KZG ceremony is ongoing and it has hit just over 10,000 total contributions. So as you can see at the top left here, total contributions is at exactly 10,447, and it's been about I think a week already since the KZG ceremony opened. Probably a little bit less than a week here. So great to see such participation within only a week with 53 days left. Hopefully we can get this up to at least 50,000. I was ideally looking for 100,000, but maybe we won't get there. Maybe we'll only get to 50,000, but I think that's totally fine. And you've got, as I said, you've got 53 days left to participate here. And just a reminder that the number you see up where it says the 2,300 participants in the lobby currently, that is not a queue. So when you submit your transaction, sign your transaction here, you don't go into a queue, you go into the pool and you're randomly selected from that pool. So if it times out, you can just try again, or if you have to shut your computer down, you can just try again later. There's no big deal there. And as I said, you have 53 days left to do it anyway. So don't get dissuaded by that. You can just leave it running in the background, but if it times out, you can definitely try again, and you won't lose your place in the queue since there is no queue. And speaking of the KZG ceremony, 100y.eth put together a nice little tweet thread about how it exactly works. So if you're still interested in how the KZG ceremony works, why we need it, what's its relationship to EIP 4844 and why is it a requirement, then you can go check out this thread here from 100y.eth, which of course I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, on to, I think, one of the biggest pieces of news from the last 24 hours, and this hits close to home for me. So it's that the National Australia Bank, or NAB, is launching an AUD stablecoin on Ethereum. Now, for those of you who don't know the bank here, NAB is Australia's second largest bank, so it is not a small player. It is part of the Big Four, as we're known in Australia. There's CBA, which is the Commonwealth Bank, is first, NAB second, I think ANZ is third, and then Westpac is fourth. I'm not sure the 3 and 4 order there, but those are the big four that dominate most of the Australian banking industry. So yeah, not small fish here. And the source of this is actually the Australian Financial Review, which is a popular financial publication in Australia here. And you can read all about what they're doing, but they're planning to issue a stablecoin called AUDN, which is going to be fully collateralized by Australian dollars. And I think they're planning to launch this by mid-year, I believe. I don't think that this will be available to the public straight away. I think they're going to be doing more internal stuff and more business-to-business stuff. I don't know if they're going to be using Ethereum Layer 1 or a Layer 2 or a Validium or something like that. I don't know how far along the Ethereum rabbit hole they've gone here, but it's great to see that they're doing this. I mean, as I said, this is not a small bank. This is one of the big four here. And you can see NAB's Chief Innovation Officer actually said, and I quote, "We believe well-regulated entities are going to have a massive role here, ensuring there is trust in any financial system that uses digital assets and currencies on a blockchain." So this is just those traditional finance players moving in more and more to use these technologies that we've been building. And you guys know, I've talked about this before on the refill, that I'm not someone who believes in a full libertarian utopia where we don't have any centralized institutions and we dismantle the banks and we dismantle the governments and everything's amazing, right? No, I don't believe in that at all. I believe that the infrastructure that we're building in Ethereum and DeFi is much better than the existing system, both obviously from a decentralization perspective, but also from a transparency perspective, which I actually think is a bigger deal, especially for the centralized entities, because they're not probably going to care about decentralization as much. They will care about decentralization in that if they want to use this infrastructure, they want to have a relative certainty that they're not going to be using infrastructure that their competitors control or some foreign nation controls or something like that, right? So if they're using infrastructure that can be credibly neutral and decentralized, and they can use it as a settlement layer, well, that is very powerful for them, because it actually opens up the world to them to be able to do cross-border transfers potentially instantly, right? Instead of having to go through the Swift system, which is extremely slow. Whereas you can use Ethereum or a layer 2 to do it, and it's much faster. And of course, these banks are obviously going to be interested in making sure that all the transactions that they do are private. And we have the technology for that as well. We have things like Aztec Network, which, as I've mentioned before, I believe are much more focused on the enterprise and corporate clients than they are on the retail side. And I think they're going to have a lot of success there. So just great to see this. I think that this is the sort of stuff that I've been saying with regards to real world assets, bringing in these traditional financial players into our world and having them play by our rules, so to speak. Because, I mean, it doesn't matter if NAB issues a stablecoin on Ethereum and they want to control Ethereum. They can't, right? They don't have any sway over the Ethereum network at all. The Ethereum network remains decentralized and credibly neutral, but of course, their own stablecoin they can do whatever they want with. I'm sure it's going to be totally centralized with centralized controls everywhere, but that's fine, right? It doesn't affect the rest of the network yet. It's just like the existing USD stablecoins that we have, though the existing USD stablecoins that we have not been issued by a bank, right? Like USDC is issued by Circle in partnership with Coinbase, and Circle is not a bank. It's a financial player, obviously, but it is not a bank. Tether is issued, well, USDT, I should say, is issued by Tether, which is definitely not a bank, right? Binance USD or BUSD is issued by Paxos, which is a financial services player, but not a bank. So banks actually getting involved themselves in issuing their own stablecoin, I think makes a lot of sense as well, because they're leaving kind of money on the table by not doing this, right? They're paying out the yield to third parties here, even though they get the deposits, which it's still good for them, right? It's still good for them to bank the stablecoin issuers because they get the deposits and they can do whatever they want with that. And obviously the yield that they're paying out, I mean, if they play their cards right, is going to be less than what they make from having those deposits. But I think that cutting out that middleman, so to speak, probably is attractive to them. And it's not just issuing the stablecoin itself, it's also being able to play in the new infrastructure, the new DeFi rails, instead of having to use the old Band-Aid, written traditional finance system, which is just, it's so broken. I mean, I've had experience lately with this over the last few days. I've been having trouble with my bank. I've been trying to do a bunch of different things, and I call up customer service. I wait on hold for like half an hour, and I talk to someone, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't see anything on my end. I can't really help you. You'll have to call this other player, or I guess this other call center tomorrow when they're open. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And I have no recourse here. I can't do anything. I have to wait and talk to the bank about this, which just pisses me off. And I'm sure the reason is something got to do with some legacy infrastructure. Whereas on Ethereum, I have full visibility over what's happening. I know why something's not working. Yes, okay, if for some reason I'm not able to access my funds on a hardware wallet that I have or some other wallet that I have, I'd have to troubleshoot that, right? And there's not really anyone that you can go to troubleshoot that. But for me, the way I am, I prefer that, because at least I have some control over it. At least I'm not relying on a third party. I still have some control over it myself, or most of the control over it myself. But I guess that's just an anecdotal example from me. But generally, yeah, as I said, like a very, very positive development here. I hope this eventuates into something more than just like a pilot program or whatever. But you can read this article on the AFR, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. It'll give you more details about this and what's happening here. All right, so speaking of traditional finance entities getting involved with Ethereum, Visa has been a long-term supporter of Ethereum. They've actually been building a bunch of different things. So they've been building a payments network, layer 2 payments network on Ethereum. They were using state channels, but I think that after they announced that, people told them, hey, state channels are relatively old technology now. Why not look at rollups? And I believe that they probably did that. I saw some signals from Hugh Sheffield here, who actually is the head of crypto at Visa, signaling that they might look into that. But today they shared a research piece on the merge itself. So this research piece went out to Visa's mailing list and on their blog and everything. And obviously this will be hitting a lot of the TradFi inboxes, TradFi people inboxes, and coming from Visa, obviously people are more inclined to read it. But this is very, very cool, because it's not just about the merge. Actually, it's also about the upcoming upgrades that are coming soon to Ethereum as well. So I just thought this is really great, and you can actually see this on Visa's blog and read it for yourself. And they've actually got like a timeline here, right, where you can see the timeline from Ethereum Genesis to the merge and how it all happened. What is proof of stake? What's Ethereum 2.0 actually mean? You know what's funny? I haven't heard the ETH 2.0 terminology since we merged. Like, no one says ETH 2.0 anymore, right? This is actually the first time I'd seen it said in quite a while, because now it's not ETH 2.0 anymore, right? It's just Ethereum. Like, there's no major upgrades like the merge coming. It's all just the major upgrades for Ethereum, the one chain, right? So it's kind of funny how I didn't even notice that I hadn't haven't seen the term ETH2 used in quite a while. Maybe you haven't either, but it's definitely a dated term at this point. But still, it makes sense, I think, in this context for Visa to put it in here and describe what this is. And they also got like a looking forward section as well. So it's not a long kind of piece here. It's relatively short, but as I said, it's definitely going to a different audience than what I guess like people watching the Refuel or listening to Bankless or being on crypto Twitter. They definitely don't do that, right? They're parts of people that would be reading something like this from Visa. But still very cool to see Visa putting this out there and just, I guess, like continuing to be involved with Ethereum, because as I was talking about with NAB, I think that it's very important not just for these traditional finance players, whether they be institutions or corporates or wherever else, to get involved with crypto, to get involved with Ethereum. I think it's really important for them to also educate both their existing customers and the existing businesses that they interface with why they're actually doing this. Because if you think about crypto's image, right, outside of, I guess, like the crypto inner circle, it's not a good image. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the comments, especially around things like NFTs, from the quote-unquote normies, right? We call them normies. That's just a term that we use for people who aren't in the industry like we are. The comments aren't nice, right? They think all of crypto is a scam. They think it's just a Ponzi. They think that there's nothing good coming out of it. They think that everything. I mean, they still think that everything's a currency, right? Like every crypto asset is a currency. They get the wrong ideas about things, and obviously the energy use as well from Bitcoin only now is still a much debated issue in that circle, as well as in crypto too. But I think that to change that narrative, it's going to take a little while, but it will change. I actually do believe it will change. And one of the parts, or one of the ways that we're going to be changing that, is by having these big financial institutions that have built up a lot of legitimacy and credibility and trust with people, and a lot of brand awareness with people. I mean, not everyone, but like a lot of people have a Visa card, right? Or a MasterCard debit or credit card, right? I mean, same with like American Express, which I think is also working with Ethereum or Polygon. I think they're working with Polygon as well. All these players getting involved will just give more and more legitimacy to crypto, especially in the eyes of the older folks who, from what I've noticed, the older folks definitely outsource their trust, so to speak, to these institutions, and they're definitely much more reliant on these institutions than maybe younger people are. So them seeing that is a very positive signal as well, and the narrative will slowly change over time. I definitely believe that's going to happen, and the key word here is slowly. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a few months' time or a year's time or anything like that. It's probably going to take quite a while, and even more so, it's going to take even longer probably to see these things deployed at scale. Like there is nothing that exists on Ethereum today that would be able to handle Visa's throughput scale. I mean, the commonly quoted number is 40,000 transactions per second, and you not only have to handle 40,000 transactions per second, you have to handle all the spikes in the demand as well without falling over. So, for example, around Christmas time, around Easter time, around the holiday shopping periods, around things like Black Friday, the TPS, so to speak, spikes way higher than 40,000. So you need to be able to handle those spikes. You need to be able to offer resiliency. You need to be able to offer those near instant settlement guarantees not settlement guarantees, but like near instant transaction confirmation for the end user. So we're quite a while away from that, but I reckon we will get there eventually. And I think one of the biggest things that will happen is if Visa or some other payment provider starts replacing some of their existing infrastructure with crypto infrastructure. That's what gets the ball rolling, because then we can get more and more players tapping in or connecting into this network, and the network effects grow exponentially from there. It's kind of like how we had everyone adopt the internet and connect into the internet, and then it obviously the network effect expanded from there. That's what's happening with crypto over time, but it's a slow process, and it'll feel slow, especially if you're plugged into the ecosystem like we are. But if you were to, I guess, I have a kind of strong prediction here, but if you were to just go to sleep today, go to a coma, or ignore crypto for 10 years, and you come back in 10 years, I reckon that blockchain technology and crypto generally would be a really big part of the financial system in 10 years' time from the technology point of view. It already is a relatively big part, especially with the amount of stablecoin volume that exists on chain. But I think in 10 years, it's going to be much crazier, because as I said before, I think I said this last year and the year before, we've entered like this scalability era of crypto where we're actually getting real scalability, and it's obviously being built on Ethereum. And I think that that's only going to accelerate from here. We've seen growth in a bear market. We're above the ultrasound money barrier in a bear market. or the ultra sound barrier in a bear market, which is pretty awesome. Obviously, we completed the merge. Execution risk is very low right now for Ethereum upgrades. We're just kind of in that golden age of Ethereum, and I think we're going to be in that golden age of adoption there as well. But anyway, enough about that. You can go read Visa's report for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so the Ethereum.org team put together their 2022 highlights today. So just looking back on what happened in 2022 for Ethereum.org, and they have 2022 in numbers for the translation program, which was a big effort for the Ethereum.org team in 2022 here. So you can see that the number of Ethereum.org non-English percentage of page views is at around 28%. I think it spiked in December of last year, so almost 30% here, with 3,000 new translators joining, 4.6 million words translated, and as I said, 28% of visits in a language other than English, which is double 2021's high. Absolutely awesome to see that, guys. Like, that's almost 1/3, right, of all visitors to the Ethereum.org website visiting it in a language other than English, which is very, very cool. And you can help them translate Ethereum.org if you're interested in that. There's a link here for that. Community engagement. So the Ethereum.org is the work of thousands of incredible contributors. In 2022, they hit 37,000 Discord members, 7,000 crowd-in members, and a milestone of 1,000 total contributors on GitHub, which is very, very awesome as well. I sometimes look at these numbers and I think, are people just joining here because they might get, they think they're going to get an airdrop or something? And then I think to myself, like, why would people think they're going to get an airdrop for contributing to Ethereum.org? It makes absolutely no sense, because Ethereum.org is part of the Ethereum Foundation, and the Ethereum Foundation is not going to do an airdrop because the token they have, so to speak, is ETH, and they already did the sale for ETH and everything like that. So I would put stock in these numbers actually being real numbers, right? At least for the most part. There'll be some people who might be thinking, if I just join, maybe I'll get an airdrop for some reason. I don't know. People think the darndest things when it comes to money, or potential of earning money, but I would put stock in a lot of these numbers being very real, especially the numbers of total contributors on GitHub here. But continuing on, they go over their open design system, which they launched in May of 2022. And as I've said before, Ethereum.org has one of the best designs of a website that I've seen. I love the vibe of it. The new pages that they launched, you can read all about this here. The wallet revamp page, Learn Hub. I mean, there's so much going on here, guys. I'm not going to read it all out. You can check out the blog post for yourself, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. But massive, massive kudos to the Ethereum.org team for this. I can't give them enough kudos here, because as you guys know, ETHUB was originally started because Ethereum.org just hadn't been updated in such a long time, and then the Ethereum Foundation put a team on it, and it's just been kicking goal after goal after goal, and they've done such an absolutely amazing job. I use the site almost daily, pretty much, just to look up different things, to link the pages to different people asking me questions. I've learned so much from it. I love that it's all there for me to play around with. As I said, I love the design of the website. It makes me feel like I'm just jumping into a different culture, so to speak, and you can see the art here, right, on my screen. This is basically what it is. This bazaar of ideas is what Ethereum has always been known of. Instead of a cathedral of like a top-down approach, it's a bazaar where everything's decentralized. There's no one leader. Everything's kind of chaotic, but it all comes together to form a beautiful thing known as Ethereum. Well, the Ethereum.org website is like that as well, because they have contributors from all over the world, contributing in different languages. And then you come together with all this information and you put it onto the website, and people can read about it. They can edit it if they want. They can change it. They can consume what they want. It's all absolutely awesome here. So yeah, kudos to the Ethereum.org team for 2022, and a big, I hope they have a big year in 2023 as well. All right, so something very cool that Sismo launched, or I guess like zkdrop.io launched by using Sismo's technology, is something called the Mergooor Pass ZK-SBT, which is now live. So what is this? Well, this is a NFT. This is a badge, basically, soul-bound token, as Vitalik has called them before, that goes to all the people that contributed to the Ethereum merge. And what this soul-bound token does, or this Soulbound badge, so to speak, does is it basically gives access to all the events hosted by the Ethereum Foundation, including DevCon, ETH Global Events, ETHCC, and EdCon. Well, okay, sorry, the Ethereum Foundation only hosts one of these, but it gives access to all the people that contributed to the merge to these events. So they basically automatically get tickets to these events by showing their badge. And this is being done in a privacy-preserving way as well, and they can claim it here. So none of you will probably be eligible for this if you're not a core developer. I mean, I'm not even eligible for it because I didn't contribute to the merge. So yeah, unless you are a core developer, I mean, hopefully there are some core devs watching this and core researchers watching this. That'd be very cool. But yeah, that's the only people that can claim it. And I believe there's probably a list on the website as well for this that you can go check out. But what I like about this is two things. So the first thing is that it's one of the better use cases of soulbound tokens, I think, and doing it in a privacy preserving way is very cool as well. And it's using Sismo, which you guys know I'm an investor in, but I've also been a very big proponent of them for quite a while. And it's showing the real utility of being able to issue a privacy preserving soulbound token to people that contributed to the merge. And then the utility they get out of it is being able to show this to the organizers of these events and say, hey, I've got this badge. Can I please have some tickets, basically? Because, I mean, I strongly believe that all of the people that contributed to the merge should be able to get tickets to every single Ethereum event no matter what. They shouldn't have to miss out because the tickets ran out. They are definitely some people that I would prioritize having at the events as well. I mean, they are some of the smartest people in Ethereum, right? So it's great to see that this has kind of happened here, because this was actually talked about, I believe, maybe a few months before the merge, something similar to this, or maybe just as we were approaching the merge. And it's great to see that it eventuated into an actual on-chain product here. So yeah, very cool to see this. You can actually, oh, that's right, the list is here on GitHub of the merge contributors. The Mergooor Pass NFTs also on OpenSea here. There's the contract on GitHub, and there's a documentation on how to prove with a Sismo here as well, which you can go check out. But yeah, first, very nice practical use case of soulbound tokens that I've seen in quite a while, if ever, to be honest, since Vitalik started talking about soulbound tokens. And for those of you who don't know, soulbound tokens are basically tokens that you get, or NFTs that you get, that you can't move from the wallet that you get it on. So for example, if I had a soulbound token issued to Sassel.eth, that was always that's stuck on my address. I can't move that anywhere. It's always going to be on that address. And the concept of soulbound comes from World of Warcraft, where essentially when you picked up an item that was a soulbound item, you couldn't trade that item to another player, or you couldn't do anything with it. You could sell it, of course, but you couldn't trade it to another player or anything like that. So it's the same thing here. You can't move this token from your Ethereum address. It is bound to you, which means that you can't go ahead and sell it to someone else and say, hey, you know, here's the token that gets you access to all the events. You can't do that. I mean, the way you could do that, I guess, is selling the Ethereum account that it belongs to, but then you would still have access to it, and there's no way to guarantee that you don't have access to it, because you could just have the private key anyway, so that doesn't really work either. So soulbound tokens are an interesting idea. There's a lot of debate about them, but I'm glad to see something like this get issued to the merge contributors, because they obviously played such a massive part in the Ethereum roadmap so far, in the Ethereum ecosystem so far, and a lot of them are still working on the Ethereum core protocol today. So kudos to them for that. And I hope they enjoy all the conferences, or the priority access to all of these conferences listed here. All right, finally, just a shout out that I'm going to be on a live stream tomorrow with Hudson Jameson, Superfizz, Kane, Wallman, and Jasper from the Rocketpool community, and we're going to be watching Hudson set up his own Rocketpool node. Now, this live stream is happening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the US, and it's happening at 12:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so Melbourne/Sydney/Brisbane time in Australia here. I'll be on the live stream for about an hour. And yeah, as I said, it is happening tomorrow or today? No, today, sorry, the 19th. So it's tomorrow for me, but today for probably most of you at that time there. I think that time doesn't work for Europe. I'm pretty sure Europe's asleep when that happens, when this is happening. But you can obviously rewatch the video once it's done on YouTube. I think the stream will probably go for about an hour anyway. But yeah, I'm excited to see Hudson Jameson do this. For those of you who don't know who Hudson is, he has been in the Ethereum ecosystem since basically day one. He worked at the Ethereum Foundation for quite a while. He was the coordinator for hard forks and the All Core Devs call. He was doing a lot of, I mean, honestly, he's like as OG as they come when you talk about Ethereum OGs. And to see him get involved with Rocketpool warms my heart, because you guys know that took me quite a while to come around to Rocketpool. Not for any, I guess, like bad reasons, but just because it's very hard to convince me to actually dedicate time to a project these days other than Ethereum. So it's great to see Hudson putting his legitimacy and his name behind this as well. And it's just another great player that we have in the Rocketpool ecosystem here, which is absolutely awesome to see. So if you want to watch that live stream, I'll link it in the YouTube description below. It'll be happening today, the 19th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Not tomorrow, just today. Tomorrow is just for me. I always get confused with the time zones here. All right, so I've got a few minutes left here, and I got one thing I want to speak about. Now, this thing has been on my mind for a little while, and I go back and forth about talking about this with a more public audience. It's something that I talk about with my friends a lot, but with a more public audience, it becomes a bit, I don't know, it becomes a bit funny to talk about. And maybe I should actually mention what I'm going to talk about. It's talking about some of the really shitty players in this ecosystem that still exist today that have kind of survived the fallout of 2022. And I'm not going to name them, right? You probably know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to name them. They still exist today. They're still poisoning the ecosystem today, right? They're still doing a lot of grifting, a lot of borderline scamming. They've still got some fans for some reason. They're still tweeting as if nothing happened, and me saying that probably starts ringing alarm bells in your ear for who I'm talking about. But they didn't seemingly get washed out by 2022. And I just kind of find it very ridiculous that this is still the case here. I get disappointed that the ecosystem isn't mass shunning these people to the extent where they shouldn't be able to post anything without being shunned for what they've done and what they continue to do. So that's one part of it. And then the second part of it as well is with related to this is the fallout from last year still continuing. I forgot to mention it earlier in the refuel today, but Genesis, the company or the lending desk that's part of Digital Currency Group that's been troubled for quite a while, announced today that they're going to be doing some form of bankruptcy filing, because obviously they have that massive debt that just kept ballooning that they owe. And I wouldn't say that I would put that into the same category as these other players I'm talking about, but there are these players that the fallout is still hitting as time goes on, and they didn't manage their risk like they should have, and that's hurting more and more people. And I really hope that the people that work with them in the past, the honest people that work with them in the past, just cut ties with them and don't actually work with them again, because the worst thing for me in this ecosystem is when people do bad things, they go away for a little while to let the heat die down, then they come back, and then the honest, or the people that I thought were honest people in this ecosystem, get into bed with these people again, either either knowingly or unknowingly, because maybe they didn't know what happened in the past here, but us as an ecosystem need to do a better job of keeping the pressure on, of keeping the education up. If you see someone that you consider to be an honest actor in this ecosystem getting into bed with dishonest actors or promoting dishonest actors, you should bring it up with them. Say, hey, why are you promoting this person? This is what they did. This is what they did in the past. This is why they're a bad person. This is why I think they're a bad person, and let them know. Because if you're very active in the ecosystem, it's kind of easy to tell and easy to remember. But if someone's relatively new or someone doesn't pay much as attention as you do, then they may not be aware of things. So it's always good to give a friendly nudge to these people, and that can actually help everyone and help just users or regular people in general, because it means that these bad players don't get as much legitimacy as they otherwise would have. Because what actually propped up FTX and SBF a lot in specifically, and Terra specifically, was all of these otherwise honest and legitimate players pumping these things up, right? Like, think about the amount of people and companies that backed Terra and FTX. Just those two. I'm not talking about any of the other ones. And you could even just look at Terra. There were so many legitimate players that backed Terra, and they kind of have egg on their face for a couple of months, and then they're just back to normal now. I don't like that. I personally am avoiding any of the, I guess, people or companies that were heavily involved in Terra. I don't care how much they apologize or how much they say that they were wrong. That doesn't matter to me. The fact that the writing was on the wall and the warnings were there, and it was very obvious what was going to happen, to me, I'm an idiot. I'm not a genius. I'm not a gigabrain. I don't have a team of researchers behind me. I'm an individual. And the fact that it was just obvious to the individuals and it wasn't obvious to these people, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to support them. I don't want to be anywhere near them because they, to me, are not honest actors. They became dishonest actors by promoting this crap, right? Terra is probably the worst example. FTX is a pretty bad example as well, and there were a lot of legitimate players there too. But with FTX, not to say that people were necessarily can be forgiven for this, but with FTX, the fraud was less obvious, right? The fraud was definitely less obvious until it actually happened. Like, they did a very good job of covering their tracks for a long time, they being the Alameda crew, right? The inner circle there. But with Terra, everything was transparent. You knew that what was happening. You knew what was happening with UST. And there were some parts that weren't transparent, like the LFG Foundation with the BTC they were buying. But that should have raised red flags for all these other people. But instead, even just like a month prior or 2 months prior to Terra blowing up, you had some of these really big companies and VCs and funds and individuals pumping the shit out of Terra because Luna was going up, right? Because UST growth was going up. And there was just no kind of, I guess, self-awareness there. And now they waited a few months and they came back. They're like, oh, we were wrong on Terra, but hey, we're still long on crypto and we're going to go with this ecosystem and that ecosystem. Fair enough, I guess. Do what you want to do, but I'm not going to support that. I'm going to tell people that you were involved in this and not to support you either. I'm just going to straight up say that because I don't think that is going to lead to a healthier ecosystem going forward. Anyway, I went on a bit of a rant there, but I'm going to end today's episode on that note. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel. And I may catch you tomorrow. I may not be able to do a refuel, just a heads up. So if I don't catch you tomorrow, I'll catch you next week. But I will announce in the Discord channel if I'm not able to do a refuel tomorrow. So yeah, thank you everyone.